Hi, I'm trying a different thing today. Firstly, let's get this fire going. Secondly, I have a new microphone set up. Gonna see how well that works. So it occurs to me, while I'm doing all of this kind of stuff, that actually worked out fairly well. I keep using the speakers and doing streams where where you can hear what I'm doing because my speakers are on. And I don't always have a live DI, especially not when it's the retro coding stuff, which I'm going to be doing today. So I might even be able to show you too. Something of a new setup for the microphones. And I'm going to see how that works. And if it does work, it'll make the presentation of all of this stuff a little bit better. And while I am busy getting my fire going, oh look, piece of stuff. While I'm busy getting my fire going, what I'll do is give you the rundown on what I changed. So on live streams, I've been using this Sennheiser microphone. It's a sort of video style mic. And those are very popular. Like I was just watching some Misty Signifier. He has a tendency to use like a Sennheiser 816 or something. I couldn't tell you exactly which one it is, but for Sennheiser video microphones, there's one main one, and a lot of voice actors use it. People who are recording video use it. It's a really good sort of hyper super cardioid mic, and that's very directional. So what I've been doing is having this incredibly directional mic pointing, at me when doing these live streams, and away from these speakers, which pretty much forces me to do a DI because it suppresses the speaker sound. Meanwhile, on the plugin streams, the weekly plugin streams, what I've been doing is using my Colares. It's that orange microphone you've sometimes seen. It's a Roswell, so it's not like Neumann or anything like that, but it's a fancy big diameter condenser. And I'm swapping everything around a little bit. So for the plugin streams, I'm going to try using the Sennheiser, which should be accurate. It's going to be at a slightly bigger distance than before. For my upstairs, I'm just using the microphones on the camera up there. I don't know how loud it will become, but I'm able to turn it up. And on this live stream, we have a new thing going on. This is going to take a while to get going. What I have here is the tiny little omnidirectional mic that I originally had upstairs in the upstairs hallway. And it is just dangling from a light bar on the ceiling. In fact, I've just made it move, which I don't actually need. So let's not do that. And I can even show you how that works. There's the camera. The wire goes up to this aluminum bar that goes across my ceiling. And that's where the little power supply thing for the little lavalier mic goes. And then as you can see, there's a chopstick holding it out down to there. Because that's what we love to do, is weird stuff like that. You can never become tired of derping around with production values if you are on YouTube. And this is no exception. And the hope is, with doing this, this is an Omni mic. Yeah, it's dangling from the ceiling effectively, which basically, it means if I bash my head into it with some kind of mistake, it's harmless. It will maybe even make a noise, maybe not. Well, let's find out. Did you hear that? Stop it. It's honestly not going to get very much handling noise, but what that means is if I have a guitar or whatever, if I bash it around, there's no stand in the way, there's nothing solid in the way. And so basically, the little tiny microphone that picks me up can sit there permanently, because I've also had to get the Sennheiser and sit it in front of me and point it just right. But here is also the hope. Let's see if I can demonstrate this. It's still mono, by the way, but if we switch over to this here, remembering I might fool around with making a different camera angle for this bit, but that you don't really care about all that much. Maybe you do. Maybe if you're interested in also doing YouTube-y things, you will be interested in this, but perhaps you're not. But I'm going to try to find Discord Welcome Home. Not this one, but another one. Oh, they're by date, that's why. And let's see how loud this is in the room and what it sounds like, which I won't be able to hear, but okay, so that is at a volume level at 12 on my speakers. And that's not too different from what it sounds like when I'm making the videos. So yeah, and David, I'm happy you think so, because that was the point. That was what I was trying to accomplish. I did not have an Omni before. I had a hypercardioid, a super hyper megacardioid, a relatively small Sennheiser, but it was not subtle as far as being super directional, which also means if I moved off mic, I would go away really, really quick. And that also meant that the sound from the speakers was not being picked up. It was wildly off axis on a super hypercardioid mic, so it was all messed up. And yep, this is the hope. Vingo trying to get mastering to appear in your DAW. Well, that would depend upon what version. Do you have other plugins of the same type that do come up in the DAW, or are you completely new to this? I'm here to do some coding, but I can also do some tech support. I'm here until 5, then I'm going to have like dinner. And let's see what we can do. And yeah, my chat can also help quite often. So what are we doing? Well, here's the list. We're going to scooch this away. Because this we might be able to hear some of the things I'm working on you will not be able to hear on a one microphone setup, no matter how good it is. And I think this will do much better. In fact, this is probably what I'm going to use when doing, like, I'll probably get a better camera for this, move it in closer, pick a different lens that shows a little bit more of all of this. But I will be getting back into the studio. And when I do, I am probably going to be using this mic from the camera going through the stream to show you literally everything. So that'll be pretty cool. That is a very interesting question. And I cannot... let's see what we have. Hang on a second. No, I can't show you that way because I don't have the most recent version of Consolidated myself. I know I put out mastering. Let's have a look at Airwindowpedia. That does control where it shows up. What do we got? Oh, it will be in subtlety. Can you look at it in subtlety? See? Because it's designed to do subtle things, and so that's the idea. Oh, what, this mic? The mic that you can't really see there, but oh my god, that suddenly went louder than I expected. That's interesting. This mic? This is another Sennheiser. It's a if I'm not mistaken, yeah, Sennheiser MKE2 lavalier mic. Oh, I bet I know what I did. I bet I blew on it. Or maybe not. But one thing about this Sennheiser, I do not have it set up to suppress lows. And yeah, I've used this before. It's sick as far as how much bass you can get out of it. So it'll give a good big sound, and it's hanging like right in front of my nose. This is still a reasonably it's not so off axis that it sounds terrible with these speakers. I could have it hanging even closer to me, but not worried about that right now. There you go, Vingo, you got there. The reason it is in subtlety rather than in some kind of mastering setting is because mastering is designed for not doing aggressive things. You don't necessarily want to do aggressive things with it, because Airwindows mastering, you should be doing it looking at the meter plugin, and it's for dialing in just the stuff that you can't readily hear. Speaking of stuff that you can't readily hear, let me see about hyping this up a little bit. I'm actually working on all manner of stuff, which I hope will go nicely for me. I have an idea on being able to do, well, firstly, I have my drums working better than they used to. And I have yet to perfect my bass sound, but I have my bass sound running into a kind of pedal that'll help that sound better. What are you doing? Please, light. Thank you. just a little bit chilly in here if I don't get the fire going. Also, it looks like... Yeah, this is a kettle for putting water in. I need to go and put some water in this kettle. I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm kind of running around doing all manner of things today. I got to do recycling. Recycling is where I run like all the cardboard in my place to the Rockingham Recycling Center. Yeah, I live in Bellows Falls, but its other name is Rockingham. So doesn't it just figure that I would live in Rockingham? And I was able to go out and get some more coffee. We had the little scare of like, oh my God, is coffee going to start costing way more or not be available? And that fizzled. But yeah, I was able to top up the amount of coffee and curry powder and stevia sweetener, which is what I use, and drop off tax paperwork at the accountant. Technically, my taxes are very simple, but I still have these people do them so that they can keep in touch with knowing how to do all of that and keep up to speed. And yeah, it's just, I see it's 2:11 in the afternoon now. It's just one of those weird days. A day where I will try to code a cool thing. So time enough to jump back to that, I guess. We'll get back to that. Here's the idea. I want to make a particular plugin, and I have a specific thing in mind. You know how DRes lets you sort of frequency crush things? And I've got DRes in so many plugins now, reverbs and things. It acts a lot like a brick wall filter. I've not yet tried taking one of those DRes filters and using it as the frequency divider. But I have not just frequency divider filters like the DRes plugin that I'm only using as a low pass. I've never tried to use it as a high pass, but it would work. Also, rather than just only having, here, I'll open it up. That should work. That or an even better idea. I could just open up one of my recent plugins that does what I want. Here's the recentest of plugins. Because here's the thing, like I can use the DRes technique to make a low pass. I've not yet tried making it as what I use for dividing frequency bands, but it should be a very steep, effective way of doing that. Having a little trouble finding where to sit. Here we go. And I certainly haven't tried it to make a 3-band EQ. But when I use DRes on a plugin like Guitar Hall, I can drop the frequency down as far as I want. And it's using Bezier curve to reconstruct. So if I didn't actually do any reverb, but I just only used that, I should have a method of dialing in the frequency crush thing and using it as a crossover. El Bonieto, hell yeah. Damn straight I am, and we're going to watch. It might not work. It might not work, but if it works, it'll be cool. I have not ever heard what it would sound like to use derez to chop the highs off of something as if it was a old digital filter, right? And then listen to only the highs that were chopped off. But we've been doing that with things like, I want to say Paf Nutty, but that's not the right answer. It's the GPS thing, Kalman. I've been using Kalman for that, and Kalman is kind of twitchy. Kalman's a little bit weird. It's not a normal thing, so let's see what we can do. And look, K-Guitar Hall, it uses pair filters. And here is where we get the Bezier filter. And first thing we do now is try to make that work all by itself. And then we'll double it. The enum's going to be the same each time, but we can make as many instances of it as we want. Yeah, by the way, I hope all of this sounds, I think that it probably will sound nice, hopefully. And I'm occasionally noticing things like thumps of loud output, which I don't know what's causing. It could be like wind or something, or I don't know what. And the funny thing about it is that I had some trouble with this setting up the mic. Like, it's not super close to me, and that's fine. Lean Bear, I hope that watching this is good to show you that people like me also feel dumb on a regular basis. So don't you let, this is, in some ways, this is why I do the live streaming and do my coding and stuff, because I am not at a professional level when it comes to coding. I'm just trying things other people haven't tried. And often that works. I apparently have a pretty good track record for thinking up stuff and trying it. But as far as being a coder, nobody respects me as a coder. I'm glad that, and hey Vingle, I'm glad to see that you get a chance to play with the mastering. Go ahead and do that. This'll go on the channel, so if you want to check back on this. And again, one of the things I'm fretting about is hoping that my recording and my voice sounds appropriate, because that's the hope, that the new microphone really is coming through. But we shall see. And its level was not exactly what I wanted it to be. I have it turned all the way up in the camera, and this is all you get. And what I've done is I've just also turned it up on the ATEM, which is the video switcher. It's the thing that does this. And having turned it up all the way in the ATEM by hitting the up button that adjusts the volume, that'll give you like 6 dB more. And I've done that, and I can make it clip by yelling, which I don't normally do. And only by yelling can I actually make it clip. So, or making a noise like drumsticks. I can clip it that way. I could clip it hitting my little practice pad. There's some noise in the room, but one thing about it is that turning up or down the mic like that, having it like this, where I actually have to speak out and project, is not a bad idea. That often is what people watching live streamers or YouTube, they often would like somebody who's speaking to them and raising their voice enough that they can be heard. And thankfully, I have enough basic voice training to be able to do that. Whether I'd be able to do it for 8 hours gets a little exhausting, but I don't try to do 8-hour streams anymore unless there's a hell of a good reason. So I guess it all works out. And I'll have that much more practice for controlling my voice if I needed to sing and project while singing, because that's another thing that a lot of people don't know how to do. And let's see. And we just got this part done. So bezier, C++. We have to go over to here. Here is the part that this uses. I'm just going to put this in and see if I can make it work first of all. Then we start playing with it. Look at the 26 controls I have to play with. We put this in here. That goes there. And then we go from here. Here's all our controls. We're going to go and grab this. This is the bit we need. Does it need a cycle end? No, but it needs an overall scale. Cycle end, we don't need this ever anymore, do we? I've replaced this with other code now. So dres is now the first knob. And now that we zoom down to here, we got a dry sample. Now we just have passing stuff through quite directly. Oh, I am going to need to simplify it a little bit, but that should be fine. El Bonito, I am not sure. I've thought about that sort of thing. I was going to do a bit crush that was along the lines of circuit bending. It was going to be called Circuit Bend. And it would be swapping bits with other bits and then giving you the output. I didn't actually do that one, but I can put it, if you're really hot for something like that, I can put it on the list. Shall we consider that as something to try? List. Because, yeah, that is something that should be doable. It's a little, I wouldn't call it tricky, but you need to break down the file. You need to break down the audio into fixed point calculations, and it comes in as floating point, so that's a bit of a concern. Anyways, let me continue to do this bit while we're at it. Here's how we do this stuff, except for we're not doing any right sample. In fact, we can go whole hog and pretend that the whole thing works like this. Then all of this stuff is reverb related. I need to go to the end. And there's our submix that we're not going to want. Oh, Lean Bear, what you mean is the golden ratio, right? You should know me by now. And then, let's see. So here's how this stuff works. Oh, stop that. That's a breakpoint. I don't use those. Sample L only. And we're not actually using this at all. So I'm going to delete that completely. This is only for being a bezier filter. And in theory, this should work. Oh, I will also note, I'm pretty sure that in here, oh no, wait, nope. I thought that was a way of getting like isolated bits out of a floating point thing, but this is not. It is not. For XF input sample expon. Well, I don't know, maybe it is. I'll look that up later. I'll figure out what that's about later. For now, we're going to see if this builds, and it won't. It shouldn't. It hasn't. Oh, I also haven't assigned it a trigraph. Trigraph question mark question mark. When it says trigraph, what it means is I haven't given it an identity. But this needs to be built twice, because it doesn't build all of its dependent files until I do it twice. But this is the part that I can change. Let's call it bezier. That seems legit. We'll go from there. And now, oh, are we still having a problem? What's its damage here? Oh, it's only got 6 errors now. Up, and it's because this bit can't be here. There we go. I had that stacked up in a funny way. See, it's talking about input sample R, and we're not actually using that one. 6 errors, so there should be another one in here somewhere. Up, sure enough. See, we're calling it input sample L just because we're going to make a VST out of it, and it's simpler this way. Sampler this way. And there we go. So there's our start. Only like 10 minutes into the actual coding part, and we got a thing that built, and in theory it'll work. We'll be finding out about that soon enough. bezier component. We'll run a sound, and if this works, it will produce a deres on control 1, and let's find out. And what do we call it? bezier. See, we're not using all of these, but this is what this is supposed to do. Oh, and we have it being much quieter than it should be too, so that's interesting. That's interesting. Don't know what that's about. I guess we'll find out what happened. And in in so doing, okay, we're not using dry sample. We're not using any of these alphabetical guys, so I might as well remove them. Easy enough to reconstruct what they did. I'm going to wait while it does this because every time I delete a stack of stuff, no, it's not really a nice lo-fi sound. I can see why you might think so. There's a number of changes I now need to make. Because what we're doing is I'm doing this stuff so that I can make it do what I want. So let's find out what this is going to take. First of all, enough with this stereo stuff. We're not doing that. Oh, maybe I know what's happening. I think we got some high winds going on outside, which is not going to be unusual. Hi, Grens. Let's keep the fire going. Yep, that's kind of what it is. That's the idea, that's the hope. In order to do that, I have to make it behave itself. That's the thing. It can't simply be a bit crusher. It's not supposed to be a bit crusher. Another log. I need to get more gloves. Look at this. You can see where the hole has worn its way through, which is probably an ember sticking to that and burning its way through, at which point it can burn my little finger. That's no good. Also see another hole there. I have no holes in this one because it's my other hand. I think you can hear me more easily from elsewhere in the room now because of the Omni mic, which is neat. Can you hear me now? You know, checking the mail. Various stuff going on. Boy, that fire is going pretty well. Yeah, so here's various stuff going on. I had mail, so I went out and grabbed mail. There's like people from the fire department checking on something across the street, so there's that. And I got a thing. I ordered a truss rod wrench. This is a truss rod wrench for Les Paul guitars. All of my other guitars use a hex wrench because they're all more Fender style. And in fact, I believe my Ibanez also uses a hex wrench. But the weird mutant Les Paul, the Les Paul that I've got that is like strangely thin, that uses one of these. Little bitty hex wrench that you can control the truss rod. And I'm doing a lot of stuff with making the action extremely low and well controlled. So pleased to get that. especially since that Les Paul might end up being a really key instrument for me, because I'm working on being able to do more guitar stuff better. And one of the things that I've done is I have here, I'm also looking at my screen and trying to debug the problems in the code. One of the things that I've done is picked up this funny little, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's like a DI, a guitar DI type of thing, except that it is phantom powered like it was a microphone, and you plug it in between your amp and the speaker, and that's how it works. I heard it, and it's going to be able to deliver more like fullness and low end than my ISO cab will. And I have a feeling that if I get that, and then I also have the ISO cab, which is way better at high frequencies, but it's kind of shrill. It sounds like a Champ or something, even though it's a 12-inch Celestion Greenback. If I take those two and find a way to combine them, probably using Golem, my plugin Golem, I can record guitars in stereo as effectively two mics, except for rather than being two mics, one thing is a mic and one thing is a DI that's off of the speaker. And yeah, oh, Gren's asking about 6 Signs. I think 6 Signs is probably somewhat CPU heavy on my end. I just don't particularly mind because I have a fairly beefy computer for this kind of stuff. It can be. There's ways of getting around that, like don't use as many unison voices, but or don't run it at such a high rate. Like it now uses the ability to do zero hold downsampling. So for a bunch of sounds, you don't actually need its fancy downsampling. There's a lot of different sounds where you can get a Airwindowsy sound, which is not to directly just say aliasing, but you can get an Airwindowsy sound out of 6 Signs by making like bass-oriented patches and running it using the zero hold thing, the most primitive version of it, and a lower internal bus. I would enjoy it if he just let you use a absurdly lower bus, but I run some of the internal bus at like 240K, but you can run it at like 120 if you want, or 140 or something. You can run it at a lower internal sample rate, and that will cause it to alias more easily. But you can also make samples that are on the line of being bassy, which don't need or don't use that. It all depends. So let's see where we're at. Well, here's something that I can do. Rather than 0.125, 0.25 or 0.5. Let's see if we can fix the funny level issues that it's having and delete all of this foolishness about using stereo when it isn't actually using stereo. This should produce, I'm not absolutely certain about this. Oh, also another thing that I was noticing is the lid blew off of my trash can because of the high winds. I guess we're all going to get used to that kind of stuff a lot more in upcoming years. It's only going to get worse. But the plastic lid blew off of my trash can and blew it all the way around to the front of my place. So I just stuck it on the porch and I'm ignoring it. Hopefully it won't blow all the way down the street and go away. And I'm currently putting compost in that trash can, so hopefully it doesn't blow away too, because don't want that all over the place. And let's see what we have. Assuming, of course, that that works. Should work. Here's our DRes calculation. Here's the hard locking it to exact subdivisions. That's supposed to work. And we're trying to replicate the exact behavior of DRes. I'm a little concerned that maybe it's not doing it, but it's supposed to be doing it. Oh, also let's do this. This part's supposed to work. L. Hang on, do I have the other? Nope, that's the same one. This is for the guy who was like, I come to watch your streams to be reminded of how dumb I am. Yeah, like, get in line, man. Hey, Brooke. Hey, everybody. We're still trying to make this work. And I have some pretty clear ideas of how it's supposed to behave. So let's see whether this shouldn't do anything. Unused value, dry sample L, correct. I have not used that. Replace it. Open this up. Let us see whether we can get this to act normally. It's a mono thing, so I can run it on a mono track this time. What do we got? Oh, I bet I know what happened. In the original version of using DRes for something, I'm not just taking the original How is this supposed to work? This can't be the way it's normally run. Let me get out of here and go and look at how this is implemented in recent projects like this one. How do you normally do this? Because I can't be doing it right. I've got to be doing it in some weird way. Are we doing anything with this? No? And sweeping it shouldn't do anything because the idea is to have it be a preset. What do I think of DeepSeek? I think that is an interesting thing. And I think it is very clever of the Chinese to be doing it as open source and running with it. I think it is extremely hilarious that OpenAI is mad that they were training it off of publicly available OpenAI output. Like they're training it off of ChatGPT output to like advise and direct it. Them being mad at that is so funny. Them being mad at that is ridiculous. Because they have no business being mad at that when they have trained their own thing on everybody's stuff, including mine. It's going to have a bunch of Airwindows GitHub stuff, which I hope just screws everything up. Here's our bezier. That seems to be what that needs to have. What is param C then? No, it's 0 to 1. I'm a little mystified at why this is acting the way it's acting. I guess we can just play with it some more and see what we get. Do we have something different in here? Nope, that looks about the same. param C or param A equals overall scale. Yeah. That looks about the same. I'm used to... Maybe it just has to do with what sample rate you're at or something. I'm confused and not knowing how this is working. Let's jump back in and we'll try it, because this is supposedly what it's supposed to do. I just don't think it is. I don't think this is what I want, but in theory, this is what I had. So we'll find out. We are at 96K. I'm used to running that. So here's what we get. And I'm used to it kicking in here. Maybe it's just because it's a guitar sound. I have an unpleasant artifact here. So the deal with this is I'm trying to construct something that's going to act like not a derez, but a filter. And this is not doing an exceptional job of giving me that yet. But it's meant to act like a weird low pass. See? Highs, and then no highs. And then nothing but lows. Okay, here's our next thing. We need to try something else. I want to hear what some of this stuff sounds like if it's not being used as a simple low pass that's not really a simple low pass. Also, the question is whether we can dial this in so that it acts like a low, mid, and high band, because it's not really doing a good job yet. And let's do a thing. Let's give ourselves a little more range of adjustment. We do this, and then it's going to kick in almost immediately. And let's start bringing this into focus. We've got enough knobs for all of this. Here's where rather than fixing it, I'm just going to rush ahead. Like, why not rush ahead? Let's see what we can do. Now we have Bez A and Bez B. That's all we need to have that. Which means we need to put brackets in here so we can initialize both of these, because we're going to need to initialize both of these. A and B. Yeah, know as you watch me do this, this is not the smart area, but if you have any questions about what I'm doing, I can doubtless answer them. Like saying things like, this is assigning the Bez A Bez cycle to 1, and Bez cycle is going to be a number because it was part of an enum. Enum means take a bunch of things and they get integer numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And we're just doing some experimenting here. So we've got A and B now. What that means is all of this can now get updated. Derez A copy, paste, and now we start doing dresb. And now we're on param b, meaning that the second control also has something to do. Also, let's make this way smaller. And maybe the first thing we try to do, hang on, missed one. Actually, I've got more than just the one, but missed that one. What this is supposed to be doing is, it is short for Bezier, yep. Because this is the reconstruction technique that I was using for undersampling. Ooh, hang on. No, we're still good. I think. We're figuring out how this works. Because, yeah, we've got these going on. It seems to be functioning. Repeat seems to be functioning. Let's do a quick little update while we're at it. In this old version, if you hold down Option, you get to replace all in selection. That's what I'm going to want. So, and then let me show you something else. Let's make two of these guys. Copy, paste, and now we have two of these guys, so I can just go like this. Same thing. And now instead of Bez A, it becomes Bez B, hold down Option, replace all in selection, and now I have another level. Except for this time, I don't need to redeclare these because they already exist. When you go double something or other, you're making a variable that is blank until you assign it to something. And we're declaring it and then immediately making it be something. And now we're going and doing it again. And I think our levels are fine now. One thing, however, is that, see how we have dres A and dres B? We're now not using that. We need to update that. So we're using the one that we want. That seems to be the only place it gets used. Nope, I lie. It's used here too. Those seem to be the place that it's used. In theory, if this works, let's see, they are independent and they are in series. And we can do this, build. Oh, it didn't like that much, did it? What's happening? Oh, I see what's happening. I shouldn't have updated it quite that way. Look, I did a dumb thing, which was a mistake. This part outside here can say Bez A or Bez E. This part inside here mustn't say either of those things. But I tell you what to do about that. All of this stuff literally inside the array has underscore. So we can change those to Bez underscore and that will be fixed. And then we can change Bez B underscore to Bez underscore and that will be fixed. And that should work. It got there. Again, I can only urge you to understand how many programmers would be making mad fun of me right now for doing dumb, silly things like that. And you know, I can't mind. I have stuff to do. I'm trying to get stuff done. So I do not care whether computers think I'm dumb. I might as well consider them computers, whether programmers think I'm dumb. Sorry, I'm doing something. I can't be bothered by them thinking I'm not coding properly. I have a fire to stoke as well, but perhaps not. And no, this is not an EQ curve. I'm barely getting anything working. Here, let me show you something. In theory, this will become interesting. Let's use a different example. How about a simple drum recording? We're also going to find out whether I have my levels set correctly. If I'm not doing levels correctly, it's going to make them go kind of wild. So, no, I think that's normal. So this should make it go very dark. And so should this. Yeah, that guitar was really highlighting the edge of things. This is doing a way better job, although my levels are still not great. I mean, honestly, I could pump up the level a little bit on the speakers just so you can hear it better. And you can hear with some selections here, it's a little crunchy. But it's doing its level best at acting like a steep brick wall filter. And that's the part I'm interested in. I'm going to see if I can have Console H done by next Christmas. We'll see. Seems like that might be cool. And see if you have the 2 brick wall filters. It's not all that different. See, it sounds kind of the same. So the idea here is to make a EQ. Probably, see, the thing that's bugging me about the EQ idea, I want it to run on the Console X control surface and replace Stonefire. So I will have an extra control for range, but I'll have like air, fire, and stone that become just high, mid, and low. So this should replace the air band. And then we feed this output into another Bezier filter, which is literally what we're doing. So if I do that, I should get we're effectively listening to only the low band. And picking the controls properly should get me to a place where, ideally, if I could use range either to do something cool or, oh yeah, I remember now. I was going to use range to dial a crossfade between this, and this is doing the low frequency control, and what I was going to do with the joysticks, meaning the parametric EQs, because I have ideas in mind for what to do with the parametric EQs, but this is meant to be like we're hearing the bass bin. So let's bail out of here, go back, and we've now got a big chunk of this kind of up and working. So the question becomes, what must we do to get this going right? Well, the first thing we need to do, well, So here's the thing, we don't need to assign this to input sample L. That's just how we get the output of it. But here's where we start assigning lows, mids, and highs. So let's start doing that. I think we've got everything sorted in the sense that we've got these working. I probably would do well to pick one and then try it at different sample rates and see how it acts. But the idea is being able to assemble something where you add these bands together again and get the original output exactly. Because that, when you build EQ bands that way, using this subtractive method, it doesn't matter whether they're nasty sounding crossovers or not, because you'll get the original out if you just don't do anything with it. And since these are so steep, that makes it interesting. And it does make me curious as to whether using the because one of my ideas for Console H is this as one possibility for filtering, or constructing the sound out of literally only the output of parametric. And that'll be very effective in some ways. That'll be one effective way of doing this kind of thing. Here, while I'm getting my head together on that, we're going to continue to feed the fire. Take a suitable log. I could probably, yeah, I can put the damper in. Not right now. I don't want the damper in while I'm putting a log in there, because it'll just let smoke into the room. But once I put the log in, poke the log with the glove. Hello, damper. See, the thing about the damper is that it will engage the catalyst, and that gets more heat out of it and cleans up the output smoke. And yeah, it's kind of interesting that I can be this far away from the mic and still be audible. I think it is much more consistent with like being able to hear distant voices versus right up on the mic voices. And that's something that the super hyper cardioid mic wasn't as good at. My hope is that I can use this arrangement for recording stuff and making new music again. That feels like that might be a nice thing. I'd like to do that. We'll see. Meanwhile, back over to this. I want to do my bezier cube. Might not actually need to use dry sample because input sample can be my dry sample. So let's see, here's where we start going either right or wrong. Bada boom. And that's how we do it. Now we have well, hang on, I've got that backwards. What am I doing? Dear me. So that's not right. I got it backwards. See, I told you don't get too impressed with how clever I am because I do the dumbest imaginable things. I'll try to be polite as far as not just ragging on myself ruthlessly, which sometimes is where I get to doing this coding stuff. But here's hoping I get an amusing result out of this anyway. We shall see. So now we've got that. And now we need to run the mid channel. Into here. Not input sample, that's the dry now. And then, let's see. And we already have mid because that's, see, we up in the top here, we're generating trouble by simply removing the mid that we generated. We're just taking it and going like, okay, so that gone. Then we're running the mid section into the other filter, which means that it doesn't have to worry about removing treble as well. That's already taken out. And we're going to assemble it back together again in the end. Jonathan, damn if I know. Time stretching sounding plugin like pitch nasty. I suppose that the Bezier stuff can play a role in that, but right now I'm not concerned about it. Let's now, we've got A, B, heck with that. Let me just copy it. This is just for immediately using it. And we are going to swap between which of these on the fly. Probably don't even need this. I don't think we need this. Or tell you what, let's do this. We'll just primitively assign this. So in theory, oops, what the heck was that? Hit the wrong button, that's all. This will work, and we will immediately go to switching around between the bands. Let's see what that does. If it works, we'll try it on a bunch of different sounds. I'm glad that you, back in the day, like years ago, I used this very mic. Right there, you can't even see it. If I went to full screen, you'd be able to see it. I used to use this for exactly this purpose, do encoding streams. And I mean, this was back when I had this console, like this desk, literally facing the other direction and bumped up against the wood stove, which I am no longer doing. And back in that time, I had the little electric mic at the time and was getting a surprisingly good sound off of the speaker. So this is me returning to that, and it seems to be working out fairly well. Now let's see what we got. Dun dun dun. Bezier Q. Here we have bass, a mid-range sound, and what I've never heard before, only treble. We can set it up like that. So here's where we explore the idea of what this actually sounds like on various different kinds of sound. I'm also reading chat because you guys are hilarious some days. So mid-range, lows. Okay, maybe what I'm going to want to do is actually have crossover frequency controls for this. So if we cross it over here, here's the bass, and it's kind of crunchy. So this is the clearest one. Where we can have it kicking in. None of the rest of this is going to change a thing about it. So this is our highs for what would be the Bezier Q. And then if we switch over to mids, this is it trying to cancel everything out. We should have no output here, but it's not quite, is it? Although one thing about it though, setting it up like this, we're listening to the mid-band, you can't hear any bass at all. Like 100% it's canceling out the bass, which it's supposed to be doing when we tell it to do this. Here it is with all the bass in the mid-range. Oreo Music, LR Convolve literally is just multiplying the left and right channel sample by sample and taking the square root and making sure that the sign is right. That's all it does. If there's any magic to it, it's because the sign is doing that. Now we're listening to the mid-range again. We're listening to stuff isolated. And I'll tell you why. It's because if we add these back together again, we get just bypass. And I want to hear how extreme this filtering can go. Although it's not showing me something I would like to hear, which is what's the boom and tinkle sound like? Which would be having it do the highs and the lows and cutting all the mids. I should be able to get a sound out of that, which is these two things. But this is what's being removed. And the idea is, can this be made to sound good when it is this extreme? So here's what our subs are doing. Here's what it sounds like when we start taking them out. Again, the way this is assembled, if you don't have this extremely canceled, so it gives me furiously to think, like, what's going on with this? Let's make it into a final form. Shall we? Let's see what we can make this do. It's getting very close to actually being ready to go, which is quick work, but it's not like I didn't have this code here before. So what's that going to take? It's going to take 5 bands. We're not going to use double S at all. We're going to move these around a little bit. We're going to do them in the order that they exist. We can probably continue to adjust this, but what this is going to give us is stuff in the middle means it's unity gain. El Bonito, are you a C programmer? You might be asking too much of yourself. Granted, I do tend to skip ahead and get excited and start doing stuff at a rapid rate. That doesn't mean it's smart stuff to a programmer. It just means that I'm doing what I want to do. Maybe somebody who is a programmer would actually be amused by watching some of this go. I can only, from most of the programmers I've met, most of them be like, you are a stupid person and why can you be making these dumb ideas and stuff? And I don't care because I need to do this. I'm trying to make something happen. And we'll have a degree of success, in fact. Here's one of the things. The way these cross over, it's not very sensitive to breaking when you don't have them set to reasonable settings. So what I can do is exaggerate this stuff somewhat. So A, B, C, D, and E might actually, maybe I'm going to need to just set it up so that, because my concept of doing this on the control surface, how does this work? Maybe I can just repurpose some of my controls. Like on the control surface, which you can't see right now, I'm probably going to fool with getting different cameras going just so that I can point to things at times like this. We shall see. But I do have Stonefire. It's sitting in the place it needs to. And then I have a bank of 6 knobs that are currently being used for 2 different compressor gates. And then the range control is used for one of the crossovers in Stonefire. But if we have these 3 knobs doing that, and then the range control switching between those and the parametric one, which I think is what I'm going to want to do, I could just have the 2 knobs immediately next to fire and stone be the crossovers for those things, meaning that I could have the control surface exist, but then I could also have what I'm putting into this. Jonathan, understand that I have my own method of loud versus non-loud, which is equally frowns on having stuff not be as loud. But I'm not interested in any of the RMS-based settings. I'm only interested in what the peaks do and whether they're making a neat cloud up near the top area of the meter. So I will see how that works out for me. I'm still looking to make a album and mix what I was doing in 2023 and put it out on Bandcamp for sale so that people can download like really high quality stuff, I'll probably just put the entire album out on YouTube on the Airwindows channel and go here. But the idea is being able to do stuff like that. And the idea here is being able to do stuff like this. We now have a setup where we have 5 controls. Desperately bouncing around with this stuff and trying to make it work. You know, one thing, if this is really fun to do, one thing I could do is simply have this be next week. I do have something to put out, but wouldn't it be funny if it turned out to be this? If this is so cool that it's like, surprise, EQ. Here's all the controls. Here's what they will do. I mean, in theory, you could keep going. I don't think I'm going to want to keep going. I think I want it to be a 3-band, but I'm warming to the idea of being able to fool with the I'm warming to the idea of being able to dial these in, even though, or maybe especially because it's a nasty little filter with ill intent. I mean, if I wanted to go whole hog, I could just straight up make it be res EQ. That could be done. I don't think I'm getting that far away. The reason for doing it using the kind that I use on the reverbs is to make it have the cream coat tones rather than the crunch coat tones. That's the purpose for that, is being able to force it into a zone where it will behave itself. But it might be worth simply experimenting with that and seeing what happens. Anywho, we just did this. Let's go whole hog and assume that we're done. None of these other controls matter anymore. We're done. We have the crossover is sitting between these things, barely even a label on them, and I'm going to set them up so that they act like a treble or a bass crossover, and I'll show you how that's done. In a moment. We might be racing really close to having this actually be done. See, this is all set. Nothing wrong with this. It'll be pretty straightforward to make it be a This always used to happen to me when I was live streaming coding. I try to talk and then I can't think and I can't complete my thought. Or rather, I complete my thought, but I can't complete my words. My words just become ridiculous. Back in the day, that used to be the sign that I was onto something. That my speaking no longer made sense because I was thinking too far ahead of my mouth. And the funny thing is, I got into the stream too late in the day to guzzle more coffee, so I'm basically just running on enthusiasm at this point. Anyways, back over to this. We now no longer have all those controls. We have only the right number of controls. Times 2 means that our boosts or cuts only go up to
I'm trying to decide whether to add the boost factor that I would like. Why not? Why not? I can copy this over. See, if I do this, then if we crank it up all the way, it becomes 2, which becomes 4. So you get a little bit more boost out of the maximum boost, but it only kicks in as you start pushing it. You know, the funny thing about that is I don't even need to do that, do I? 1 times 1 equals 1. What that would do, however, is make the cut fall back way quicker than it maybe should. I guess we can but try. We'll find out what it does. It's going to change the taper of the potentiometer that this is pretending to be. And all these just go from 0 to 2, except for it's going to be going from 0 to 4. And small cuts will have a quicker effect than they otherwise would. Otherwise, you'd like pull it back to 0.25 and that's only 6 dB down. If that. No, it would be about right. So I'll have it become a lot more sensitive. And what's the final thing? The final thing is this power function controls the taper of the filter. So dres A normally just sits there. You have to turn it way, way down in order to make it kick in. It will still go just as low as dres B will, unless I tell it not to, unless I specifically make it not doing that. But this, on the other hand, we exaggerate it even more. If they were supposed to be sitting around 3 power of 3 to make it have the correct adjustment so that mid-range was in the middle and you got to fool around with them all you wanted, we've just pushed the 2 in opposite directions, but they still cover the same range. So treble gain means that if you swoop it down to 0, you're cutting everything off. You're cutting the frequency down to 0 as well. But anything in the normal travel is going to be much more trebly. dres B follows that. And since param d to the power of 5 makes all of the values really tiny, and I think these values are... I think this is the only thing that stops... Well, no, this is not the only thing that stops it from being the original dres. I'll tell you what. This bit, where bezier larger than 1 equals 0, is something that we don't do in the original dres. Instead, you subtract 1, because it can wrap in a different way. So let's see what we just made. Oh, we made a mistake. That's what we made, because we're not finished. We're not finished because we have to do this instead. Ta-da! We no longer have a switch. We just have this. We add these together again, Oh, I have missed a trick. If we do this, we will never hear any change in anything because it is simply constructing it into its Bezier curve calculations, which are all subtractive. They're all differences between things. And then putting them back again without altering anything. Here's what we need to do. All this stuff needs to incorporate the gain settings we just coded. That's what it needs. Let's see what we got. Only thing remaining to play with would be seeing whether crunch coat actually is a fine choice. Afghan drop roll off. Oh gosh. Thank you. Lord knows I do put effort into making myself look pretty in videos. That's something that's worth doing if you're a YouTuber. Like, a bunch of people who do audio or musical work also put an effort into it. And frickin' Ben Jordan tries a little harder than he used to look pretty in videos, so it's fair game for anybody. Drums. Bezier Q. Check it out. This is now what this is supposed to look like. And sound like. Normal, You might almost think that these don't do anything. But you'd be wrong. That's interesting. Okay, so the crossover to bass kicks in way too low. We do not need it to be this suppressive of bass. Unless, of course, we're using it for thunder. We can do this now. How's that grab you? So here's our new subs. Afghan, the Q and N time is literally while I'm doing this. You get to ask your questions now. This is a fine time. So now what I'm wondering is whether I really should be adjusting these crossovers to handle scene settings. Because I wasn't expecting it to be this unmanageable. Again, you have to have it actually doing something to matter. Like this is treble only. But then the treble is now swept down to the bass. Well, hang on. Can you then do cool things with it? Signs point to yes. here's one handy thing to do with the new little microphone. One thing about this tiny microphone is that it does pick up all the bass. We're taking this raw drum thing and bringing up absurd subs. I have a good feeling about that. So that's a good amount of boost. It's a good amount of cut. Oh, interesting. So here's our mid set to really dark, deep bass. So if you did leave it this adjustable, and then you sweep the crossover of the bass, which is now cut, we get weird, terrible things happening. In fact, this is giving me my full range back. That's weird. And everything cut is just nothing. Yeah, I think what's happening is we are playing things off in and out of phase. That's interesting. And of course we have plenty of range for boosting and making things be too loud. .5 is normal. So why are we getting this? Okay. Treble crossed over this low. Oh, this is why. Treble crossed over this low means that our actual treble band is this. It's just full range. So having mid if you had mid crossed over even lower, then it's a positive mix between the treble band, which is extremely loud but is turned down all the way, and mid, which is mid-rangey but turned up all the way. As we start bringing it in, our mid-range is crossed so sharply, and we're using it to cut the bass is turned down all the way. But then as we continue to cross that over higher, we're subtracting bass, but the bass is... See, what's happening is we have this, right? And this is low mids. But if we turn the crossover between mid and bass up real high, we are adding what's probably becoming a negative calculation. That apparently goes back to being able to hear the highs again. Wait, we have a complete cancellation? That's crazy. What on earth is going on here? Okay, now we're using mid-range as some kind of terrible high frequency boost. Okay, also I'm going to scroll back for a moment because I see a bunch of questions, and I asked Afghan to ask questions and then I haven't been answering them. Tried error to best to tape, blown away. Good, good. I'm glad they work. Question is, since you haven't, because you just play with everything is what you're supposed to do. Good, good job. Question is, what vocal chain would you recommend? I use Deep Bass and Console X channel for the most part. That's pretty much what I do. For recording videos, I tend to put discontinuity on my voice, but I set it all the way down to like 70 in Final Cut as just a little extra tweak on the sound. Remembering, of course, I said I was using Console X channel for mixing vocals in an actual mix. Console X channel has discontinuity. You should remember that that's there, because otherwise you'll be leaving it in at the default setting. I realize it's a little tricky, but yeah. Console X has discontinuity built in. Bright ambience, yeah, sure. Sure, you can do that. The reverbs and things, yeah. K-plate 140, sure. One of the things I have used on vocals, especially if you're interested in like your mid to late 70s Bowie sound, like the station K-plate 240 was in part designed around the station-to-station sound, as was stuff like Crunch Coat. And the reason for that is, back in the day, Bowie would fill out his voice using, your relatively newly invented digital reverbs on a very small, tight room. Like a fake reverb sound that it was a room type sound but with no sustain to it. It would just kind of have this boxy quality. You can hear it in a lot of the station-to-station stuff. Something like TVC 1.5, you can hear some of that around the voice. And in particularly like Wildness the Wind, Gold, a lot of stuff off of Station to Station has that tight little reverb right behind, acting like it's a slapback, but it's not a slapback. K-plate 240 can be used in that way. You use the very little in the way of sustain, and then set up the pre-delay so that it's acting like it's a little slapback. It's pretty much at exactly the frequency that would vocal jam you if you had it as just a straight slapback echo. That like prick, 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 that kind of really fast slapback. And yeah, you set it up like that. And mostly I don't make them so that there's multiple things in one plugin. There are exceptions, like any reverb plugin that I have that has discontinuity, also known as Top DB, built into it. It's because that's on the reverb path. And then the Console X, of course, has all the things. And Grenz is correct that it is very subjective, as in what you need to do with vocals depends upon what you're singing and how. It's a very significant thing. Yep. Let's see now. Scanning forwards on, Lean Bear. If you are using Console X, you need to incorporate discontinuity into it. It's one of those, on the control surface, it's a little red knob. the red knob for doom or nuclear meltdown. And it's right over the pan knob. And if you're using just the, it's probably going to be over the pan knob on the GUI as well. Yeah, and Console X may very well be intimidating. This is one of the reasons why I have other console designs that are simpler and more approachable. You can do something like Console 9. It's the same summing engine as Console X, but there's very little to it. It's just a gain and a pan. And yeah, tell you what, guess what we're still doing? We're still making noises with this by completely mutating what it does. And I have a feeling that some of my settings here aren't what they might be. Remember back in the beginning of this? I took this stuff and I said DRes less than 005. That's ridiculous. No, it should be less than 001. That turns out to be just subsonic frequencies. I don't really have any good reason to have that. So tell you what, let us make this be. We'll see if 005 does anything. And then this one is much easier to control, so we're going to make it be... It'll not go down to as low of a frequency. And one more thing. Oh, no, wait. Hang on. No, I think that is... I think that is. See what I'm doing? If it's larger than 1, it's minus exactly 1. We've just replaced the cream code algorithm with the crunch code algorithm. Let's see what this makes possible. And we've also adjusted some of the minimum settings. Ooh, also, let's dial this back just a hair. There's so much room on the base end of things where nothing's happening. Actually, I'm going to put this right back. It's not going to break anything. If people want to be able to dial in this setting on literal subsonics, knock yourself out. Save, build. Let's see what we just made happen. We just replaced the cream code algorithm with Folger's crystals. And we're going to see what it did. And if we like what it does on the drums, we'll throw some real sound at it. And I'm trying to keep an eye on chat. If people have questions to ask and stuff, I should at least be able to answer them. Although granted, this is maybe the most important thing to be doing. But all the same, I'd like to do this and answer questions all at the same time. Here's our trouble. Okay, interesting. One thing that is happening to me is At 96K, all this area is nothing. Nothing's happening. Hang on.
Nick's too busy letting this get away from him. There we go.
Okay. I got a feeling I might be onto something with this. Because remember, when we do this, no matter what the crossovers are doing, it's normal. We can make all of this stuff literally go away. But we also get to use these in whatever they are doing. So that might be... Oh, what just happened? Interesting. So we get mid-range out of this, but if we don't have it canceling all the way, it does different things. That's interesting. Does the other one work the same way? Let me do a little scroll back. Scroll back of fire. I'm having too much fun playing with the knobs. This bodes well for what we're able to do with this. I feel I might actually have something going on here. Yeah, this is coming. Scroll back. William Bear asks about Windows 10. I don't know anything about that. How to make stuff run more efficiently. Fair. Have I optimized my system and hardware for audio work? Yeah, somewhat. Again, if treble, mid, and bass line up, you have the original sound again, no matter how crazy it gets otherwise. Excuse me. Further questions. I'm scrolling back. FL Studio. Afghan continuing to ask stuff. Fair enough. Optimizing performance. DC is having a nice experience with Compress Saturator. Fair, okay. Neat thing about what I'm doing is I've set it up so that I have a subcake. Instant subcake. What else we got? It is 3:59, so it's about an hour. There, that's enough fire. That's enough fire for you guys. About an hour before dinner time. That said, I'm happy with how this is coming along. In fact, I may wish to make a VST out of it before I leave today. And Jonathan is correct that Air 4 is different on Console X and it does not have the ground and dark frequency ratio, which are the, I think they're present in Air 4. Oh wait, hang on. Yeah, Air 4, that stuff exists in mastering in its own way. So this is getting funky. So what can I set these to as defaults that'll be sensible? Let's assume that I want it to be bright. Oh, I could just meme it. Let's just meme it. remember this, but I don't. Ta-da. How's that? That's a beefy tone. I think we got there. I think that works. We can add some more thunder here. I am wondering, however, whether going to the full crunch coat DRes is desirable. I'm wondering that. Clearly I can. Like, I can if I want. I just forgot what that was. What am I doing? Let's edit that now before I forget again. This is, of course, Airwindows Meme City, meaning it is the golden ratio and the inverse of the golden ratio. So if you do that, there's your highs, here's your mids, and then lows is like real subs. Which is a pretty punchy lows, honestly. It's not acting like it's a high pass, although it technically is. Just a punchy low. And there's our mids. So I think these settings are actually working out fairly well. Huh, El Boniato. That sounds like something to be added to Circuit Bend. Delay for individual bits. That could be messy as anything. Absolutely, I'll try that. So we do this. 0.382. There. So now we have the treble mid crossover and the mid to bass crossovers. And I just want to try something else. Let's lock it to the cream code settings again. Because the thing is, this is derez, so as you start going down into the base, you have a very wide range of possible settings that will do this work. I do not make resonance suppression plugins. I make resonance causing plugins. Bada boom. Bada bing. It is just possible that I won't do the VST plugin version of this. But it's also possible that I do. It's only 403. Remains to be seen. If you go to the Airwindows site to download individual plugins, do it in the collections. Do not do it from the pages of the plugins, because those are as released. Let's see, where are we at? So we're going to start playing with other sounds other than just this drums. I think this is better. Yeah, it's a big change. Start from this, turn it to this. I think this is where we're going to want to take it. Now let's play with some other noises. Just for a moment. Oh, I know, a guitar sound. Seeing as this is a mono-capable plugin. That's a bunch of rumble from this dumb little guitar. So remember what I said about how it needed to be able to transform the thing into sounds that you would not recognize at all? This qualifies. In fact, this is hurting my subwoofer, so I need to stop. That's pretty terrifying. bit of an edgy noise. So part of what causes this is that it's interacting with the Bezier curves in a weird way. Yeah, so don't let the crossover hang around in the subs unless you want something to happen there. Even if it interacts with the frequency, it will cause something to happen there. Getting some aggressive sounds out of this. So that's an aggressive mid-rangey sound. I'm chasing everybody away. Don't care. I do this for fun. So you find a sound with X. Start with normal, and then surprisingly little of it gives you a strikingly filtered sound. Goes back to this, put that back to that. So that's taking a lot of highs off. Starts with this, turned into this, and then what we can do with the bass if I use the bass to turn down only a little small amount of it. that just brought that up. And now we're emphasizing the subs on this guitar. That's weird. Then canceling it gives you this. That's weird. Okay, so that's deeply annoying, so we're going to stop playing with that for a moment. I'm going to... Afghan has a very salient question. Pop 3, the most recent Pop anyhow, whatever that is part of Console X. You can practice with the version of Pop contained in Console X by using Stonefire Comp. And yep, Fulcomos is on top of that and has correctly answered. What else can we do? Let's play with a track. It's a 44.1K track with intentionally the balances off and see what we can do to straighten it out, if anything. Because this is... this track. So if we added highs, this is what we have for that. And then there's our bass being swept in and out. Pretty sure I can do is set it up so that I'm boosting just the subs on the kick drum and not that resonant bass note. So if I was to try to do that, I'd be doing it kind of like this. There's the bass. Here's where the kick comes in. And then if I do this, you can't hear the bass note any longer. I don't know if it's working. So we started with this very loud bass, and now we're going to try to remove the bass and leave the kick. Okay, that kind of worked. Having a quick glance at chat. Globus Hystericus, one neat thing about Reaper is that they will let you continue to use it before you buy it. You just say, I'm still evaluating, and you just still evaluate. They're very good about that. I've tested it. I own a professional level copy of Reaper, and rightly so, but I have a version of Reaper running in a virtual machine on my Windows virtual machine, and I never put any kind of code into that, and it's still fine. Just a moment. Let's keep this going. Oh, no wonder it burned out so fast. It didn't have the... I didn't have the filter engaged. Not filter, what am I talking about? When I flip this damper up, it engages the catalyst, not the filter, the catalyst. And it's hot enough to do that, rightly so, because it has burned a couple of logs to ash very rapidly. Back we go. That ought to hold it for a bit. And you know what? I think this is actually holding together pretty good. I'm throwing some very challenging things at it, and it's not really able to act like a normal EQ, but it's not really supposed to. Yeah, the Reaper guy is one of the guys. Some of my friends in the Surge XT forum seem also to be like that. They're very interested in what they're doing, but they're very uninterested in even like making high quality videos or anything. They're just like, nope, this is me. I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's pretty cool in its own right. Let's play with some stuff with regard to revamping things. Oh, I know, here's something. I believe this is from a guy's video where he was doing recordings with a regular DI and also a Wolfbox DI. But the important thing is that I can throw the new thing on it and see what weird noises I can make. Because now this is on individual tracks, right? We do get into that thumpiness, don't we? Down far enough. Okay, remember how I said that console H should be able to completely reinvent sounds so that you could use the Beatles and not be able to tell it was the Beatles? time to test that assumption. Maybe not with that one. I get by with a little help from my friends, except, guess what? Not getting busted for it. That's too easy. What else do we have? Okay. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band Track 4, so it claims to be. So that's a track from Sgt. Pepper's, so they claim. Let's see if we can make that more unrecognizable. Yeah, you can't tell. You can't tell that it's Beatles. It's too distorted. Love it. It's kind of horrible. This is a guitar solo. That's what this is. This is a guitar solo. Wow. Okay. What's this? Audience sounds, that's what that is. So that wasn't... Ooh. Hey. Let's take literal Beatle lead vocals. We can swoop it in until it's clearly audible, though. And of course, just by doing this, you can immediately put it back to identifiable. And so we're not going to do that, not even for a fraction of a second, because we will get copyright struck real good. But we haven't, because bezier is capable of distorting things beyond recognition. And that's just what is needed for a console H, where you can leave it plain, not do too crazy things with it, but then you can turn and do really crazy things with it. Speaking of crazy things, sine wave. What happens when we use the sine wave? Okay, that got loud. Okay, that's still a sine wave. Base is what's going to matter here. Hey, insta ambient. Welcome, my son. Welcome to the machine. That's my subwoofer being upset with me. So that's interesting. I think I need to try another thing. Now that I know that can do that, if I go back to the crunch code algorithm, and do not quantize these things. Actually, let's leave this one alone, because only the other one's being tested. Build that real quick. Jump right back in and see what this makes. Interesting. Okay, we got a tremolo happening for no good reason. I'm going to say weirdly not as good because that's cleaner somehow. I don't know why that would be, but I feel it is. Whereas if we try to force it to what would normally be considered cleaner output, which was our original idea for that, into here, back, ooh, look, we still have massive subsonic content, even though we can't really hear it because it's below my sub's capabilities. Oh, interesting. Higher frequencies. That's a neat noise. Cool, cool. And it's a little bit a vocal. What happens when we start fooling with a vocal? Well, that's messed up, so we don't want that. Surely it's a little bit unfair. It's a little bit unfair. Surely 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 it's a little bit unfair. So it's a little darker, but I can hype it this way. Surely it's a little bit unfair. Surely it's a little bit unfair. Surely it's a little bit unfair. That's much more aggressive. And needs de-essing, but still. Bit unfair. Such demands are hard things to forgive. You're the one I call upon to ride. 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 Okay. So what's going on here is you might need to keep the bass matching the mid in a situation where it's generating stuff, because it's generating stuff. I'm having kind of half an eye on chat. The one I call upon to ride. You're the one I call that's
upon
them.
to rise. You're the one I call upon 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 to rise. You're the one I call
So that's all a
upon
lot of
to
pitch and stuff. But one thing
You're
about
the
it
one everything's returning unto
is that this raw
you.
sound could do some hyping,
Everything's returning
and there's a lowness to it, a weight to
you.
it, a sort of rumble.
Everything's returning unto you.
Whereas that's a really
Everything's returning unto
aggressive
you.
top end right there.
Everything's returning unto you.
And we can dial it in.
Everything's returning unto you.
That's a very aggressive vocal
Everything's
sound.
returning unto you. As too much from one who cannot dare.
I mean, it could use de-essing,
Such demands are hard things to forgive.
but the amount of sheer
This
aggressiveness,
alone I'll call on you to do.
let's see what happens if we leave that, right? But do a little effect stack on the assumption that it would need de-essing to get that aggressive. Let's see what we can make happen. Again, we're like in the hip hop zone. It's not so much about, oh, let's get the majesty of the original raw vocal, because that might not matter. Instead, we're going to use plugins. Let's do bass. And then the previous setting of bezier. Turn it off for a moment.
Surely it
And depth and filter will help.
forgive. This alone I'll call on you to do. Cast aside a lifetime's vicious lies. Everything's returning unto you. You're the one I call upon to rise.
And in doing it that way, we can make it a really, really brutally aggressive vocal that jumps right out of the speakers.
Surely it's a little bit unfair. Ask the dead of heart to walk and live.
But without the S's taking your head off.
Ask too much from one who cannot dare.
More sharpness means other sounds.
Such demands are hard things to forgive. This alone I'll call on you to do.
And just more high frequency boost.
Cast aside a lifetime's vicious lies.
And that's a really hyped vocal now.
Everything's returning unto you.
Like, am I blowing up the mic?
You're the one I call upon to rise.
And again, what we started out with was this.
Ask the dead of heart to walk and live. Ask the dead of
So we're
heart
trying to do a
walk
hip
and
hop like
live.
hyper aggressive version
Ask
of
the
it.
dead of heart to walk
So-
and live. Ask the dead of heart to walk and live. Ask the dead of heart to walk and live. Ask the dead of heart to walk and live. Ask the dead of heart to walk and live. Ask the dead of heart to walk and live. Ask the dead of heart to...
So that starts to become like having your ear in a megaphone with somebody else singing into it. Do I have my mean vocal tracks in here? Rise mean vocal, I totally do. Okay, so this should become amusing. So imagine that this is a hip-hop track where somebody's trying to go really hard.
Only rightful governor of your affairs. This amounts to downright spiteful. Who's the fool who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of
It's like
your
splitting my
affairs?
ears.
Know him now, there's no one fairer. Shown by all he'll take away.
And that's what it naturally sounds like.
Love's a trick and life's a terror. What then do you have to say?
I think this will work as a hip-hop style EQ. I think you can twist it until it does whatever you would want it to do. Let's do some other even uglier things. Supposing we wanted to bring lows in.
Only rightful governor of your affairs. This amounts to downright spiteful. Who's the fool who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs? Know him now, there's no one fairer. Shown by all he'll take away. Love's a trick and life's a terror. What then do you have to say? Only right.
So what I'm doing is the crossover to bass is bringing in weird artifacts, because it does. So what I'm doing is boosting the bass and trying to place them in the mid-range just so that they make an aggressive mutated sound.
Only rightful governor of your affairs. This amounts to downright spiteful. Who's the fool who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs? Know him now, there's no one fairer. Shown by all he'll take away.
So it's got an
Love's a
insane,
trick and life's a terror.
it's got an insane like ring modulating thing going on. And of course, we don't have debass kicked in at the moment. So if we gradually reduce these to not a weird twisted amalgamation of who knows what,
Only rightful governor of your affairs. This amounts to downright spiteful. Who's the fool who stands and dares?
all the weird sound goes away. So effectively we have a 3-band EQ that is composed of stuff that can interact in really twisted ways with stuff.
Who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs? Know him now, there's no one fairer.
So you get to use it to twist and distort things. And when you have something simple like a monophonic voice, it can take the monophonic voice and put stuff in it that didn't even exist. I feel like this might have its place, and the crossovers need to be avoided unless you know what you're doing.
Who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs? Know him now, there's no.
On the other hand, treble crossed over with mid seems to be real effective at making things aggressive, and I think that plays its role.
Who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs? Know him now, there's no one fairer. Shown by all he'll take away. Love's a trick and life's a terror. What then do you have to say?
Man, that's aggressive. Okay. So that's what you get when you use DRes as a high pass. When you straight up just use DRes as a high pass and sweep it around like I was doing, you can make heinously aggressive and not particularly realistic sounds that just rip through the speakers or a phone or whatever else it was that you would be using. You don't have to boost as hard as this, mind you, but that's what it does.
Stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs. Know him now, there's no one
That's
fairer,
aggressive.
shown by all he'll take away. Love's a trick and life's a terror, what then do you have to say? Oh.
And then when you cross it over with the bass, it introduces even more stuff, which can get messy.
Who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor
Or
of
just a
your
thump.
affairs. Know him now, there's no one fairer, shown by all he'll take away. Love's a trick and life's a terror, what then do you have to say? Oh.
So when you do that, you have your really aggressive sound, but then as the bass comes in, you start getting into weird ring modulating
Who
stuff.
stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs.
Ooh. Wow. Hi, D-Bess. We need you again. Okay, we de-bess it enough, and nothing's happening.
And dares I think
Okay. You hear that?
away. The trick in life's a terror, then do you have to say?
The amount of nasty overtones on this is terrifying.
This amounts to downright spiteful. Who's the fool who stands and dares to deny the only rightful
Okay, take that out again.
governor of your affairs? Know him now, there's no one fairer.
So we got a point of complete cancellation. And then
Today, only rightful governor of your affairs. This amounts to downright spiteful. Who's the fool who
that's
do
aggressive. as
you
anything.
have to say? Only rightful governor of your affairs. This amounts to downright spiteful. Who's the fool who stands and dares to deny the only rightful governor of your affairs? Know him now, there's no one fairer, shown by all he'll take away. Love's a trick and life's a terror, what then do you have to say? Oh.
Okay. Well, that's new. That's so new, I'm going to go away from the voices for a moment and come up with something else. What was this? That was noise and something else. Clicks. Yeah, that's me measuring a circuit. Not a useful sound for this. I'm going to go back to guitar, new rig again. Ooh. Okay. What do we got here? All right, that's messy. Alrighty, let's make sure that debess is on that too. We didn't need that. It didn't engage because there wasn't any actual S's in this. Back off. And again, if you have things completely canceled out, like with this X being down in the deep subsonic, it can act fairly normal. And then if you bring the X filter in, more weird interference. Excuse me. The thing that I'm appreciating about this, even though it's really messy and ugly, is that there is a aggression and immediateness to all of the horribleness it's producing. Got notes happening. It's 5. It's time for my dinner. I think I've earned it today. Jeez. This is a mess, but it's a kind of glorious mess. I guess we'll just have to put it out. I know, exactly my point. Dang. Okay, here we go. There's the thing. Okay. Yep, pretty much. So there you have it. Let me hustle to get that done. I'll see whether I can get it out so that people can have it maybe... oh, you say right away? Okay, I'll see if I can get it done by this coming weekend. It'll be pretty fun to demonstrate, I'll tell you that. Woof. What a mess. But what a spectacular mess. You know, another thing that I was thinking about fooling with is trying to use the Bezier curves for compressor envelopes. Oh, Afghan Console XP is just the tone shaping stuff without the actual Console X, which is encode on channels and decode on the bus. If you wanted to just play with the sounds or run an extra copy of all that processing in front of like a tape emulation, which is probably more than you need to get into, that's what you would use. It's like the stuff that could go anywhere in the system. And on that note, I will talk to you folks later. I'm going to run off and make myself dinner. Bye-bye.